Welcome to episode 4 of From the Point podcast. I am Thomas Modesto, joined today with my friends Alex Bucola and Sean Salehi. Alex, how are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. Excited to talk hockey and kind of talk about the sad news that happened.
Yeah, that's for sure. Sean, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm excited. It's always good to talk hockey. I'm doing well.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. It's been kind of a slow week in terms of little movement going on in the NHL and whatnot. There's some big news that isn't exactly player related, but we'll touch on that a bit later. But just to get things rolling, we had a couple of signings. A couple of guys signed their entry level deals. Uh, Quentin Byfield on the Kings. Caden Gooley just signed his entry-level contract today. A bit shockingly, the Sharks signed Ozzy Weissblatt, who was the last pick in the first round. They signed him to his entry-level contracts. But first and foremost, I got to give Alex his credit where it's due. He called Evgeny Dadonov going to a smaller team. You got it. So
Thank
far
you.
we have
Thank
Tristan
you.
getting his, and we have Alex getting his, and I'm pretty sure you got it like almost right on the nose with the contract too.
Well, yeah, I didn't think he was going to get that much money, but I kind of figured that he was going to go to a smaller market team. Now, can you say Ottawa is a small market team? You could debate that, considering how, excuse me, but how poor they've been lately. So I'm pretty happy that I was able to call that one. I honestly, Tommy, I was jumping on your bandwagon, thinking that it might have been Hoffman coming up soon, but I think we're still see him on the free agent list. No,
Yeah, he's still up there. Now I couldn't imagine many teams wanting
with all
to
that baggage.
yeah, him and his girlfriend both are
Yeah.
are quite a pair, and you get one, you get the other. So I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's I I I mean, he's a great player, but we'll see. But credit where credit's due. Dadonov
Thank you.
goes to Ottawa
Thank you.
for 3 years, 15 million. That's five AAV, and that's a pretty good signing for Ottawa. Ottawa, you can tell, it has taken it quite a massive leap forward. I think. I do not think that they're anywhere near a playoff team, but
No.
I think they'll be competitive. Now, I mean not competitive for playoffs, but like I said, but I think they'll be competitive. I think they'll put up a more so of a fight than they have in the past couple of years. Other Another guy that signed on the 16th of October, I believe, kind of a interesting series of events. Joe Thornton signing with the Toronto Maple Leafs on a 1 year, $700,000 contract. He was originally agreed to play for HC Davos or Davos. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's
You got it right.
yeah, it's a Swiss
It's
team.
a Swiss. It's a
Yeah,
Swiss elite team. Yeah.
it's a Swiss team, and he agreed to play for free, which is kind of unheard of. But I guess, I mean, that's a lot of guys are talking about that. Like he's like the ultimate beer leaguer doing that move, going to the top division of Swiss hockey. Going, yeah, I'll play for free. And the guy's
Hmm.
41 years old, but he signed that deal with Toronto. He'll fill in somewhere. They'll find a role for him. And we've kind of seen recently that the Maple Leafs are bringing on these old guys to kind of prepare these younger guys. Like Joe Thornton played on the Sharks. He doesn't have a cup, but he has lots of playoff experience, and so did Patrick Marleau. When they signed Patrick Marleau, I mean they were teammates. What do you think, Sean? How do you think Joe Thornton's gonna kind of play into the system that the Leafs have up there?
Well, I mentioned it in our last podcast when we were like, what are we most excited for left in free agency? I said, I'm interested to see where guys like Joe Thornton go
Mm-hmm.
because, I mean, he's, again, we mentioned this with Lundqvist. It's kind of a Ray Bork situation. He's a guy that is widely beloved in the NHL, has yet to win a cup when he's up there with one of the most deserving, pardon me, to get a cup. But I think that the Maple Leafs offer him an opportunity to contend while also giving him an opportunity from the Maple Leafs perspective to really be a mentor and help not change the culture, but kind of give a little bit of a winning attitude to some of the young guys on that roster. Because the thing is, I mean, the Maple Leafs have been choking a lot of chances. I mean, they're fluttering now with taking over where the Lightning have been the last several years. They're a dominant team, have a lot of talent, but can't get it done in the postseason. I mean, at first it was the Caps, then it was the Lightning, and now you could see it be the Maple Leafs because they're just stacked from top to bottom offensively. But again, it comes down to the postseason, and they just haven't had any results pan out their way. So I think having a guy like Joe Thornton, even though he hasn't won a Stanley Cup himself, just be able to provide the veteran leadership on how to get to a Stanley Cup, which he has accomplished, and really help steer the players in that franchise in the right direction moving forward.
Alex, what do you think about this signing?
So really just to sum it up, we've seen this been done in Calgary. You see Jaromir Jagr goes to Calgary, they put him with the young guys, and they think that he's going to bring a little more experience, a little more of a leadership to the team. It doesn't work. It didn't work in Calgary. The game is too fast now for old guys like Jagr, Thornton, Marleau. I think it's the same concept as when they brought in Patrick Marleau. We see how ineffective it became. Patrick Marleau couldn't really keep up with these guys. And I think it's going to be the same concept as bringing in Joe Thornton. I understand it's a good concept. You're bringing in this old guy who's been around the block multiple times. He's been around the league for forever now. Like Sean said, this is just another Ray Bourque type of situation. I really don't think that this is going to work. I think that, honestly, this is going to sound crazy. I think his best bet would have been to just stay at HC Davos. I don't believe that this is a good signing, especially with the style that the Toronto Maple Leafs play. They play a run and gun type of offense. They play with a lot of speed, a lot of talent, a lot of skill. Joe Thornton doesn't play like that. Joe Thornton comes from the gritty grind of San Jose back when they were really good in like the early or the late 2000s and like 2010. Their first line consisted of Danny Heatley, Patrick Marleau, and yours truly, Joe Thornton.
Yours truly. Okay.
The smallest guy on that line was Danny Heatley at 6'4". They played a very power forward type of game. That's how they scored. This is not how the Toronto Maple Leafs play. So I understand the locker room presence and the playoff presence that he can bring to the table. But in the full season aspect of it, I don't think that there's going to be much change at all.
You see, I disagree. I disagree.
Yeah.
I disagree because, and the way I see
I don't think he's going to play a lot.
Well, no, he's not going to see. He's going to be a bottom sixer, like no doubt. He's going to be centering the fourth or third line, maybe. Exactly. The dude won't see more. The dude won't see more than the dude won't see more than 15 minutes of ice time a night. Honestly, he may not see
15 minutes.
That might be
That's a lot, dude.
I'm saying he won't. He's not going to see that. Like he.
But here's the thing:
see like 10 minutes.
When they brought in Patrick Marleau, he got that position as the second line winger. So I would have to assume that they're doing the same style. Now I don't know if that's going to change because different coaches. Mike Babcock was the coach when Patrick Marleau was on the team. So I don't know if that's how it's going to be with a Joe Thornton player. But I don't know.
I'm going to assume they're going to have John Tavares anchor that second line.
Joe Thornton, I think, is more than capable to play winger. I think John Tavares is more than capable to play winger as well. But I think that Patrick Marleau, I think Joe Thornton's best suited at center.
I don't think they play him on the second line. I'm going to let Tommy say what he wanted to say because I think Tommy and I are on the same page in that, yes, you can compare it to the Patrick Marleau situation, but I wouldn't say that it's Marleau's fault that they didn't make it over the hump. I would just say more so that like it's it kind of comes down to this is almost like, and you can talk about it this way in another example in that it didn't technically work when he was on the roster, but it did end up eventually making changes. And again, this is a bias of just a story that I'm familiar with the Capitals. Yeah. When they brought Justin Williams on, that changed the locker room dynamic forever. Mm-hmm. That like Alex Ovechkin has long credited Justin Williams for getting past the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2018, even though he wasn't on the team at that point, simply because he kind of brought in a different mentality on how to attack the postseason. Obviously, he's Mr. Game 7. He retired,
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
Best of luck to him in retirement. He's one of the all-time greats in terms of postseason play. But I think, yeah, I mean, it's not out of the question to think that a Joe Thornton could provide a similar role just in the locker room standpoint. They don't need Joe Thornton to be a Stanley Cup playoff hero and, you know, win them any games. They have more than enough talent to do that with the guys that they already have on the roster. But they need somebody to get them over the hump mentally, because it's been a roadblock for them. I mean, they've been hotter than a bottle rocket in July going into the postseason, but they haven't done anything once they make it to that point. And I think Joe Thornton, a guy who's, like you said, been there, done that, can help them do that. Again, I want to let Tommy say what he wanted to say.
Joe Thornton is still a good player. Like, I mean, he if he stayed at HC Davos, he would have absolutely torn up that Swiss league, even at the age of 41. I mean, he would have. He clearly wanted to stay in the show. He clearly wanted to find himself a team. I don't think he's being unrealistic with himself, where he was going to expecting to get top 6 minutes and produce. Because, I mean, he hasn't. Last year, at least, he did. In 70 games, he had 31 points, and he saw 15 and a half minutes on average. He's going to see less time. He's going to score less points. But I think, I agree with Sean here, is that ability to maybe not necessarily lead the younger guys, but to install a mindset, a very good winning mindset, to help them get over that hump that has
and just
faced
provide
them.
some experience. Like, hey, you know, if Austin Matthews asks, or even John Tavares, because let's be honest, the captain of this team doesn't have a whole lot of postseason experience either.
Yeah.
Like, if John Tavares has a question like, hey man, we're down 2-0 in this series, how do I talk to the guys? How do I get them, you know, out of this funk, and how do we move forward? It's not going to be Austin Matthews answering that question. It's going to be Joe Thornton.
That's true.
So Brooks Orpik, another perfect example for the Caps. That dude was terrible for the Washington Capitals. I mean, he was a great third-line defenseman, and even that's a stretch. I mean, he miraculously scored a goal in that Stanley Cup Finals against the Knights, but that was the first in 2 years that he had scored. Like, he didn't do a whole lot in terms of on-ice productivity, but what he did in that locker room spoke volumes and ended up helping them win a championship. So that's another example. And again, I know I'm only using Capitals examples because that's really the only things that I can think of. But I mean, if you want to use Justin Williams again, he was the leader of that Canes team. Of the Canes team. I mean, like, you know, it's just having a veteran presence helps in all of sports, and I think Joe Thornton can provide that in Toronto.
The fact that he came this cheap too, it just helps.
Exactly.
That is true.
Like they don't lose anything by signing this man. Like if it was a multi-million-dollar contract and they
if
were
it was
like,
$1 million contract,
that's yes, exactly. Then everyone would be like, all right, well they clearly overpaid for this, but they signed him to the bare minimum for what they could possibly have purchased a player for. And they're getting everything. And I mean, they are not at all expecting this man to have an all-star season or carry this team. He doesn't need to. He knows he doesn't need to. They have superstars, multiple superstars on that team. There's no reason for that. They're going to make the playoffs. It's just for them, in that narrow part of the season that is the playoffs, where they play every other day and then sometimes, you know, a bit longer than that if they win the series. Can Joe Thornton really show his value by helping the team mentally? Because he's not going to play a full 82 games. I'm going to expect a 41-year-old to probably get injured sometime during the season, whether it's, I'm assuming maybe not a huge injury, but, you know, something to help him catch his breath a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, he missed 12 games last season, and you can't really expect a 41-year-old to keep pace with guys who are like our age, like who are like 23, 24, 25, the guys who are like peak physical fitness in their entire lives. It's at the end of the season when the game or when the season is winding down and everyone has reached like a physical limit. Can he get everyone to rally up and push them over that so they can see if they can make a run at the cup and finally win one? Because, I mean, for the past, 2 years, they've really kind of missed the mark. I mean, like,
they have. And the last thing I do want to say about this, and Tommy, I think you kind of touched on it already, is that with this signing, there's a lot of upside that could happen. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of positivity that could happen. And the downside of this is really nothing. You're basically in that limbo that you've been in. So I guess looking at it from that standpoint, you could get better with this signing, but I do believe that with this signing, you won't get worse. So
yeah,
I guess it is a good signing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
I changed him. We changed him, Tommy. We got
it. Yeah. I mean, you heard it here first. Episode 4. Alex changed. I think that was the first time anyone's ever changed their opinion so far on this show.
Joe Thorne's a bad signing. Changed my mind.
No, too bad. Too bad. All right. And with that, we're just gonna piss off Alex more by talking about Stan Bowman and the letter that he sent to the fan base of Chicago earlier today, talking about a bunch of different things about the future of the Blackhawks, the pain that they will be going through. Alex, as a Blackhawks fan, how do you feel about this?
So let me start off by saying, and Sean, I'm going to say this directly to you.
Yeah.
I will not take as long on this segment as I did in the last episode.
I was keeping a timer. I was getting ready to go. It's like 8:53. Do we make it to 9 or no?
No, yeah. I will not take that long this time. But Tommy, you can vouch for me here because as a Rangers fan, you have been through this pain as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to read the whole letter because that's kind of pointless. But basically, it's not from Stan Bowman. It's from the quote-unquote Chicago Blackhawks, but the letter has Stan Bowman's name written all over it. It's basically saying that, hey, during this time, y'all just got to stick it out with us. The Hawks are trading away a bunch of players that you may love. The Hawks are trading away a bunch of players that have won cups for them. But during this time, we are not blowing the team up. We're basically just going to start a rebuilding process. And the one thing that I have to say about this letter that pisses me off is that you released a letter to the Chicago fans and to the Chicago community that quickly, but it takes you that long to tell your star players that, hey, we're rebuilding? It just blows my mind that they
Add some context to that. So, like, when for people who might not have been listening to when we brought this up.
So, just to reiterate of what happened, Stan Bowman traded away Brandon Saad, Oli Mata, and let Corey Crawford walk and sign with the New Jersey Devils without consulting to the Blackhawks core four of Taves, Kane, Seabrook, and Keith. Never consulted with them once, never said, hey, just let you guys know we're going to be dishing away some key assets to this team because we're going to start rebuilding and we're going to start from the ground up with our prospects. Never consulted with these guys, so they basically have to find out through the grapevine of, hey, we're rebuilding, and they release a public statement instead of coming up to the star players. It's just mind-boggling that this is the way the Hawks are going to take it, because there is a firm middle ground of rebuilding and also rebuilding and staying competitive. Well, I think the Blackhawks do, like I said last episode, the Blackhawks do have a team where they can stay competitive and be able to rebuild at the same time. But with all these trades and moves that they're making, it just makes everything very confusing. Because Stan Bowman, or not Stan Bowman, I guess, the Chicago Blackhawks are saying with the letter. Yeah, but it's Stan Bowman just trying to save his own ass. Doesn't want to get fired, so he wants to say, I'm sorry. But the Blackhawks are saying that we're going to start stockpiling on our prospects and we're going to start developing them. My one question, where are these prospects? The Hawks trade away Brandon Saad, you don't get a prospect. The Hawks trade away Oli Mata, you don't get a prospect. The Hawks give away Corey Crawford with nothing in return, just let him walk. I mean, I understand you get Lucas Raymond in the draft. I understand you get I forgot his name, the goaltender from the United States National Development Program. That's awesome. You get some of these prospects, but in the letter to the community, you're saying that we're going to start stockpiling on these prospects and we're going to start developing these prospects. I understand the stockpiling of prospects. It's going to come. We're going to try to get them. But the development of these prospects, they really need the Hawks. The Hawks front office really needs to take a step backwards, and they really need to reevaluate their prospects if they think that this is what a good farm system looks like. Because you can't really develop a team full of quote-unquote prospects based on 24, 25, 26-year-olds. That's not considered great prospects. They're on the fence of, hey, this is the most you're ever going to get from me. So, and not to mention that the Blackhawks front office has come out multiple times on the record saying that they don't like playing these young guys. So there has to be something done to the Hawks front office, whether it's just a complete overhaul of the front office. And I say that with the absolute, I say that really wanting them to just completely get rid of everyone, starting from the ground up. Get rid of Jeremy Colleton. I think Jeremy Colleton is just an absolute puppet. Stan Bowman is probably the worst GM in the NHL right now. I cannot say that enough. But what they're doing is very confusing. It's a very confusing time to be a Blackhawks fan. We're going to rebuild, but then there's no pieces to rebuild. You don't even get draft picks. It's just, I don't know. I just don't like it right now.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and that's the Blackhawks are just late to the show. And this letter would have meant a lot more if it came 2-3 years ago. Because, I mean, the Rangers did the exact same thing, where they sent a letter to the fans, but it took them about a year. And after the year where it became clear that the Rangers are going to no longer be really that competitive, Jeff Gorton and Sather both, I guess, came together and created a letter, and it was addressed to the fans. It was like, we have been to 129 playoff games in the 2000s so far. We've been at multiple Stanley Cup runs. We're sorry we haven't won anything, but we've come to a time now where you're going to see some of your favorite players are not going to be a part of this team, but just stick with us, and it's going to be a fun ride. It was upsetting to hear that as a Rangers fan at the beginning, because I was like, all right, well, McDonough's going to go. San Luis left. He was fun to watch. Inevitably, Hank leaving this year was the last piece.
Yeah.
That was like, all right, he was really a part of that glory era with the Rangers. Like, I mean, you can argue Chris Kreider was or is too, and he's still a part of the team, but he wasn't as big a piece as as Ryan McDonough or Henrik Lundqvist. But the Rangers did it immediately. The Blackhawks don't. They didn't. Yeah. They waited. They've been waiting years. And one thing the biggest thing I can remember, or like going to their decline, was 2016. They had made the playoffs, and you and me, Alex, were sitting in the common area of our dorm
when they got swept.
And they got swept. They got waxed by the Predators, which was big because
by Pecorino.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was big for where we were because we went to school really close to Nashville, and so it was a big deal. But I remember it being shocking. And I mean, the Preds ended up going up on a Stanley Cup run anyway, and they ended up losing to the Penguins. But still, it was the first time I can recall where I actually pay attention to hockey, where I was like, wow, the Blackhawks are like kind of trash. Maybe not trash, but they're starting to fall apart.
No. They're starting to fall apart. So in the right to say that.
They were starting to fall apart. And the next year, or maybe a little bit after that, is when I would have come out, and I would have said, all right, the Blackhawks are no longer competitive. We got to get into rebuilding mode now. And if you're going to address the fans, then you got to address the fans then. and you got to tell them, hey, chill out. I know we suck. Some of the guys that you've grown up watching may not be on this team in the future. That's how it is. But just hold on. We're going to take care of it. And if they
Yeah.
did that then, like years ago, I think Chicago would be in a much, much better situation.
So you would
However,
think that the best time for that to come out would be the year directly after you get swept in the playoffs, wouldn't you think?
well, they scored like what, one goal the entire series or two goals or something like that.
You would think.
What? Sorry, I was drinking water, but they've delayed their rebuild so long now to where I feel like they're lost. Like they've the past couple of years they've tried to get themselves pieces, smaller pieces. They're like, all right, we'll tweak this, we'll add a little bit of this, we'll put a little fairy dust on the defense, and hopefully we'll get a playoff run out of this. And it's never worked. It's never worked. They should have in that time traded away some of the big names, got some picks, built up the farm system, and built from there.
Panarin.
I disagree with that for just the fact that he's on the Rangers. I absolutely think they should have.
absolutely.
I absolutely think they should have kept Panarin. I 100% should have kept Panarin. But getting rid of Taves, getting rid of Kane, getting rid of Keith and Seabrook probably would have happened. Getting rid of Crawford probably would have happened. But it might have been worth it to be really bad for the next 2, 3, 4 years, getting really good draft picks, acquiring really good prospects, and then by now, like if they would have done it where like when the Rangers were doing it, they could be competitive. They might not be a playoff team right now, but they'd be in a whole lot better spot if they started doing it. Back then, they'd be a lot better spot right now. Because right now, I could probably count the amount of like good prospects that they have, like guys that are going to make an impact in the NHL. I could probably count those guys on one hand.
You can't even. I wouldn't even think that you could count Boqvist.
Well,
because
Boqvist is
he's
going to
already
be
playing.
Boqvist. Well, yeah, no, if Boqvist is still a prospect, he's what, like 19 or 20.
He's 20, but
you
still.
got him. You got Bodine is going to be all right, and I mean that's like you got
That's
Kirby
about it.
Doc. You got Kirby Doc. Doc is going to be a great
Kirby
center,
Dach's-
I think.
the thing is, he's already making an impact, so I wouldn't consider him
Well,
a
he's still a
prospect.
he's still a prospect just because
Yeah.
of his age, and I know Sean's quiet over there because he doesn't have much to talk about considering
Here's
he's
what I wanted
riding
to-
the
no,
Caps.
But here's what I wanted to go to. I wanted to actually turn this over to Sean. I wanted to hear what Sean's opinion is on, because he's never been through this. I wanted to hear what Sean's opinion
Well,
is.
he's been through it.
No.
He's
Just-
been
no.
through
Give me
it.
a sec. Give me a sec. I'm not done. I wanted to hear what Sean's opinion is on a NHL organization sending out a notice or a letter to the fans and the community addressing them on their current situation. I want to see what Sean's opinion on this is.
Like, I honestly think it's a smart thing to do. In terms of, granted, you have to make it aware to the people behind closed doors first, and then, it goes to the fans. But considering that the fans are generating a majority of the revenue for your organization and your franchise, I think it's only fair to include them on your franchise's goals and your franchise's plan for the future, so that way they can temper expectations. Because if you think about it, you have an opportunity to control the narrative by putting out something that, hey, we're actually not expecting to be winning the Stanley Cup this year.
Yeah.
Versus if you don't put that out and everybody believes you're expecting to win and fall well short, then that makes you look like you just failed. But if you are able to temper expectations a little bit, I think that actually that works in the benefits of both fans and your organization by having a clear method of communication, a clear line of communication as to what the goals are of the franchise. In terms of, and I'll make this brief, in terms of like with the Caps, there's going to be a time when things are going to start to go this way, right? Like, I mean, the Caps are one of the most salary cap strapped teams in the NHL. You saw it with Holtby having to leave. They have really a small window now to stay competitive. The thing is that's different between them and the Hawks is that their star players are definitely not going anywhere. Like, they're never going to trade Ovi. They're never going to trade Backstrom. because they'd rather lose every game in their final season than see them wear another jersey. But I think, it's going to end up coming down to when they retire, and then after Ovi retires and Backstrom retires, how are things going to look for guys like Kuznetsov or Wilson? And so I mean, every team that wins eventually ends up going through this. I mean, it's not there's never, especially in team sports that aren't college, where you just get there's a lack of parity because you get top prospects every year. The worst teams get the best players in each draft, so they'll have the highest prospect ratings coming into each year. Usually the consistently good teams don't have that, and that's why, like Tommy said, you sometimes have to make this hard decision to hit hard reset and sell away assets while they're still valuable, so you can start garnering those future prospects to help rebuild and for the future. But I mean, as somebody who's trying to watch a team, with their window closing, I also understand if you truly believe you can continue to contend, that you need to hold on to the pieces that you have, because there's no, I mean, let's say this. Yes, the Hawks got swept several years ago by the Preds, but let's just say you trade away Kane, you trade away Taves, and you're pretty much blowing up the team.
Oh, that just hurts in theory.
There's absolutely no guarantee. In fact, it's more likely than not going to be the case that the players that you get are not going to be able to contribute to the same level that the guys that you're giving away. And that's just, it just shows how special the players you have are. So, I mean, I understand hitting a hard reset, but I also understand the Hawks waiting it out as long as they possibly could, because you aren't going to get a Patrick Kane immediately replacing him. Even if you get a top prospect, he's probably not going to be Patrick Kane in the first 4 years of his career. And you're giving up Patrick Kane, or you're giving up Jonathan Taves. And it's going to be hard to replace the assets that you're getting back, even if they are, of high value, because you just don't know how prospects are going to work. I mean, hell, we all play online on NHL 21, and our team name is the First Round Busts. You never know what's going to happen with some prospects. It
Absolutely.
Can be hit or miss. So I understand, to an extent, trying to hold on for as long as you can when you have generational talent. And the thing is, too, with the Hawks, they're not like the Caps. They didn't just finally won. They won 3.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's you're talking about a dynasty, and that's hard. That's even harder to blow up because you have even more history tied to it. So, I mean, I understand where they came from in terms of the timing of the decision. I don't think they executed it properly, like Alex said, in terms of not communicating with the players on the team. But I think in terms of when you have to finally swallow your pride and make the decision, they held out for as long as they could.
Yeah. Is this something that we're gonna start seeing a lot more? Are we gonna start seeing?
I think so.
Teams shelling out these notices to fans.
Yeah. I think so.
I mean, I promise you, the Rangers for the Caps. There will be one for the Caps. I promise you.
I think we're gonna see it if teams have like massive names. You
have to talk, the Capitals, the Penguins.
I mean,
these are teams
they have players that are generational. They're generational.
And they're going to be declining sooner than later, and they're going to have to start making some tough decisions. If you're like the Senators, you're not going to come out with something when you don't have anybody that really matters.
We're going to start rebuilding now. Like, we have been. So
the Oilers aren't going to do it either because they don't have any current sustained success. But
I'm talking in the future, No,
I agree, but that's what I'm saying. You have to think about the teams that have been consistently dominant for the past 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
The Lightning are going to end up making this decision. The Bruins might end up making this decision. Granted, I think they're farther away from having to make those tough decisions than the Capitals and the Penguins are.
Yes.
But you're going to look at teams like that. I mean, heck, the Knights down the line. I mean, if they can stay consistently good, make it to another cup, potentially win one, like every team that ends up sustaining success eventually has to, there's always a fall from grace, and you're going to see that relayed to the fans.
It's going to be interesting because I mean there's clearly a criteria of how good your team needs to be in order for it to kind of be necessary for you to send out a letter to the fans. I know the Caps are going to be, and that's going to be a tough day for you, Sean. I know, because I mean, like, clearly they're not ever going to trade away Ovi. They're not going to ever trade away Backstrom. They're going to be retiring in the uniform that they started out with. But I remember when the Rangers first sent out that letter. It's heartbreaking. It is because
it's scary. Like
it's not necessarily scary. It's
who's
heartbreaking.
Going next?
Well, it's heartbreaking because I mean, for the longest time, when I really first started paying attention to hockey, the Rangers were really, really good, and they were really, really good when I like really immersed myself into it. And the rebuild that they're going through right now is really the first rebuild that I paid attention to, like completely. And so when I started watching hockey and cheered on the Rangers, that's all I knew up until they sent that letter. And it kind of hit me then when I was like, wow, like this is going to be a tough next couple of years. And I mean, Madison can tell you the amount of times I just scream at NBC where I'm just like, I hate the Rangers because they just play so poorly and they weren't fun to watch in the past after they got rid of everybody. And I would just, oh God, I hate this team. I didn't actually hate this team. I love this team more than other teams sometimes, but it's just difficult. And the worst part about it is that it's inevitable that every single team comes to a point like this. And it doesn't matter what dynasty you're a part of or what players you have. Every single team comes to a sad end. And I mean, with that said, I kind of want to transition to another sad ending. I almost said Eddie Olczyk. No, his buddy Doc Emmerich, his partner, was unfortunately announcing that he has retired from NBC and will no longer be the voice of the NHL.
It is happy news. We shouldn't say.
Well, it's sad. All right, no, it's happy. It's sad for me as a fan, but I'm happy. I'm happy for him.
Yes.
The dude is going to go down as an absolute legend. And on the absolute off chance that he ever hears this, I want to say that I am extremely happy for him. The dude is one of the biggest names in sports broadcasting history. He will be one of the biggest names in sports broadcasting history. He was one of the best to ever be a sports broadcaster. He has one of the most recognizable voices in all of sports. The dude has done so much for the sport of hockey. It started 50 years ago. It started 50 years ago with the Penguins. It started 50 years ago, and it's hard for me to believe that he's been in this game for 50 years.
I know.
And I mean, as a Rangers fan, as a Capitals fan, as a Blackhawks fan, he has been a part of some of the most iconic moments in our franchise's histories, really. Whether it's winning a cup or a big game or just immaculate saves or shots or goals or whatever. It caught me by surprise when he said that he was going to retire, because it's just not something I thought about. I just didn't see him retiring, and I feel like there was no, at least I didn't see. I could just be absolutely blind, but I didn't see any like precursor to him saying, "Yeah, well, I might call it quits after this year." And when I heard it,
it's such a shock.
Yeah, when I heard it yesterday, I was, I don't know, sad. I'm wondering now, and I know, hey, Sean, there's now a job opening at NBC. I know you're looking for a job, so I mean, but I wonder who's going to take that spot.
You know what? I was just about to say, whoever's taking that spot has some hefty shoes to fill.
Yeah, and he's. I mean, I have a feeling Eddie Olczyk he might kind of fill that role. Someone might become. I wouldn't mind seeing
will never be a play-by-play guy.
No, yeah.
Well, okay, I don't know. I can see it happening, but
Eddie, I would put millions and millions of dollars.
Okay, all right. I can see it happening. I can see it happening.
But so, I think. I mean, as somebody who is trying to fall into the career of sports broadcasting, specifically play-by-play. Eddie Olczyk was one of the reasons I got into it. I mean, he's hockey's Vin Scully. I think he is, without question, without
You mean
fail.
Doc?
Yes, Doc is hockey's Vin Scully.
Oh,
That's what I'm saying.
easily.
He is
Absolutely.
hockey's Vin Scully. Doc Emmerich, I think, is hands down the greatest hockey broadcaster to ever live. And I think the thing that will, be part of his legacy is, Alex touched on it, but he was such a wordsmith.
Oh,
He,
his
uh,
vocabulary was
he was-
insane.
He used over 150 verbs per game, which is absolutely insane. The guy never slipped up, never had a problem in the booth, never had any issues that, now unfortunately, you see all these things where people get in trouble outside the booth, or they get caught with a hot mic or something like that. There was never anything like that with Doc Emmerich. He's considered one of the classiest human beings on this earth. And the thing to me that is just so crazy is that everybody has, their voice that is in their head when they think of certain memories, especially when it comes to sports. And for me, it's Doc Emmerich every time I think of hockey. I started buying the NHL games once Doc Emmerich took over. I never heard Gary Thorne because I never had any of the early 2000s NHL games. So Doc Emmerich has been the guy on my video games. He's been the guy on my TV screen. It's just you always associate him with the big games, and I think we might as well dive into this. Some of the greatest calls he ever had involved our teams playing in it. Tommy actually, we tweeted out with the podcast Twitter, what's your favorite? Tommy tweeted out his favorite, and I actually agree that's one of my favorite calls.
You know what?
I'll let Tommy. I
don't mean to cut anyone off. I don't mean to cut anybody off. I think all three of us are going to agree that that's our favorite Doc Emmerich call.
I think.
Yep, that's my favorite.
If you haven't seen it, it's Derek Stepan in Game 7 and Braden Holtby sad face
2015.
and 2015, and I'll let Tommy talk about it, but that's without question my favorite goal.
I think this is a good place to start to wind down. So as we wind down, I want all of us to share. I'm going to share mine, and we all know what's coming up. But I want you guys to think about what your favorite call of your team is. With mine, I'll start. It's Game 7 of the matchup between the Rangers and the Capitals in the second round in 2015, and so many just talking points and just images pop up in my mind when I think about just everything surrounding that call, and a couple of things that were a part of that series that I remember. Game, I want to say it was 3. The Rangers were down 2-0 in the series to the Capitals already, and me and Tristan were at Sean's house, and we were watching the Rangers and Capitals game, and it was an overtime, and it was, I want to say, 11:30, and it was tied 1-1 in the first overtime, and Ryan McDonough has a slapper from just above the one of the circles and scores the OT winner. And I scream. I'm like, yes, yes! And both Sean and Tristan look at me like, dude, shut the hell up. It's midnight. My mom is trying to sleep. And I'm like, oh yeah. The next thing that comes to my mind was
describe. Let's focus on Doc's calls.
That's what I'm trying to get to. And I'm just kind of building it up. I remember the beginning of the Rangers comeback. You, Sean, and Tristan gave me so much grief for the Rangers being down 3-1, and I just remember being meh. Like, we'll see what happens. And I had no confidence in the Rangers, but I remember Game 7 watching in my living room, and that play develop, and the puck falls straight to Derek Stepan on the rebound, and him just putting it into the back of an open net, and him jumping on the boards and the team flooding him. And Doc Emmerich made that moment so much better. So much better with that call. And I mean, it's a call that I can damn near word for word, like, repeat myself, because it's so iconic. It had so much meaning. And I mean, like, when that goal went in, I don't think I've ever jumped higher in my entire life, but I remember, like, going silent and just listening to Doc, and he just made that moment. He made so many moments 10 times better just with the words and the sound of his voice. He always knew what to say and how to say it. That moment for me is it's my favorite Rangers moment, and it's my favorite Doc moment. Sean, what is your favorite Doc moment?
Well, what makes that moment so special as a broadcaster is they teach you several things in terms of how to execute the big moment, and Doc did it all brilliantly. I mean, first of all, it's the loudest and longest score call. Score! Like he held that longer than any other call that I can think of in his career. And it's because, I mean, you would have thought he was a Rangers fan just because of how excited he was. And it was awesome. The other thing that's important is you get out of the way and you let the crowd take over. And the crowd at MSG was insane. I mean, you're moving on to Tampa in the conference finals, and you just kind of let that sit. And yeah, I mean, that call was incredible. There's actually, and I hate to do this, there's 3 calls that come to mind. 2 outside of that one, 2 involving the Caps, 1 not. So I'll do the one not involving the Caps first. And Tommy's going to hate this one. It's the Alec Martinez goal. I was
thinking of that one too.
In the 2014, 2012. It
was 2014.
Yeah, so that was 2014, the Stanley Cup final, double overtime. Kings are at home, and Alec Martinez scores the game winner, the cup clincher, and it's just it's Alec Martinez game winner, the Stanley Cup. Like it's it's just.
And you said, and the Kings are kings.
Yeah, I mean it was perfect. So that one lives on in my memory when I think of great Doc calls. Obviously, the Stepan one comes to mind. The game cup clinching goal for the Caps. Connolly with the shot, rebound, Eller. It's that one. That one lives on in my memory. But the one that will always stick out, and I'll probably think of that memory only with his voice, is the save in Game 2 of the 2018 Stanley Cup Finals. And it didn't go. I mean, the thing is it's so easy, especially in hockey, to get excited on what you think is a sure goal. Everybody in the stadium's cheering in half a second because they think it's all in the back of the net. But he did not flinch. And, he could have easily said, score! Oh, wait, no! But, he perfectly called that save. And it's, it was the save of the decade, one of the greatest saves in the NHL history. And he owned it. And that's one that will live on in my memory for the rest of my life. And then, like Alex said, he always had a great line for end of the Stanley Cup. I mean, he said the capital of the country is the capital of the hockey playoffs when the Capitals won. And he actually recently was interviewed either today or yesterday by reporters, and they asked him what is his favorite call of all time. And it was actually after the TJ Oshie shootout against Russia. He said after that he used the line from Miracle saying, a lot of people paid their rupees to get in here to see a win, but not this game, not this time. And that's a direct line from Herb Brooks. And
you stole mine.
Yeah, it was perfect. It's perfect. I apologize.
The thing that I love about that Lars Eller one, that with Sean and then Tristan, if he's listening, he can definitely feel this. Is that when he said that, when he gave that Lars Eller goal that eventually clinched it, you, me, and Tristan, Sean, were surrounded by tens of thousands of people because we were right outside of Capital One Arena, and they had it. They had the game up on the big screen, and they were just pumping the call. And I can still remember it. After everybody cheering, all those tens of thousands of people, I can still hear Doc's voice coming over the loudspeakers. And it's amazing how his voice just sticks with you. I'm sorry for cutting you off, Alex, but go ahead.
You're totally
talk
fine.
About yours. You talk about yours.
So really quick, I just want to say, Sean's been saying about his vocabulary so much. The thing that I loved about Doc Emrick, and I've said this to my brother for years, and I've said it to you guys, but Doc Emrick announces a game like he's trying to hit the word count in an college essay.
Yes.
But I love it. I love it. You tell me
Never heard somebody say waffle board before.
That's what I was gonna, you tell me how many announcers say this, but the game that really stuck out to me was when it was just a normal puck battle in the corner, and Doc Emrick threw in the word helter skelter. Yeah. Now, when I heard that, because I was still young, I had to look up what that meant. And it was just insane that an announcer was able to throw that in there, and not just throw it in there, but he was able to make it work and able to make it flow through how he broadcasted the game, and it was phenomenal. But some of the most iconic calls I think he's had, I mean, you can talk about Sean, you're going to love this, but some of his Caps calls have just been insane. You want to talk about the Mike Green OT goal from the point? Yep. That one was insane. The Mike Ribeiro OT goal, that one was insane as well. But as a Hawks fan, because the Hawks getting some love on NBC a lot, I was able to hear Doc Emrick a lot, and I mean, you can't go wrong with the 2010 Patrick Kane Stanley Cup Final game-winning goal. I mean, not only was it an awesome call, but you were able to hear I know he's not a Hawks fan, obviously, but you were able to hear almost an inner Hawks fan in him. You heard the excitement, you heard the confusion in him. It was almost as if he was jumping around in the booth trying to look for the puck as well. It brought excitement to me. It brought nervousness to me. It was awesome. But honestly, my favorite call by him was Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals against none other than the Detroit Red Wings. Right there, it was meant to be a great game. Winner goes on to the Stanley Cup Finals. Rivalry for years. Doc Emrick calling the game. It just had the perfect formula for a great game. And then, with Brent Seabrook bringing it in just from a massive hit by Dave Bolland, just to see a little chip shot go in. It was an average goal, but the thing about it was the massive roar from the crowd that reverberated through the entire stadium with the combination of Mike Emrick's amazing call. Just I still watch the highlight from time to time because it's considered one of the loudest roars in not only United Center but Chicago Stadium as well. The Chicago Stadium, the Madhouse on Madison, it was so loud that it got its nickname from when they would roar during the national anthem. Pieces from the roof would actually crumble down and fall onto the ice. And to say that I was able to witness one of the loudest roars in Chicago Blackhawks history, also combined with the amazing Doc Emrick call. Sean, you hit it spot on because that's your thing, man. I mean, you hit it spot on. He was able to do the score, and then you listen to the crowd. It was just talking about it brings chills down my spine. It's an amazing day to see that he retires in the greatest form possible. It's going to be sad though to watch these NBC games and not hear him.
It's going to be weird.
It's going to be weird. I mean, I'm a fan of Kenny Albert. He's a great announcer, but I think that's probably who's going to fill the role for Doc Emrick because he does NBC games as well. Unless we see the Gary Thorne comeback, which that's how I grew up. That's how I
Yeah.
grew up watching Saturday night games on Saturday night NHL games on ESPN. I wouldn't mind that, but man, it's hard to see him go. But it's hate to see you leave, but I love to see you go in this fashion.
Yep.
He's
Yeah.
riding off into the sunset at this point. It's just it's sad but happy to talk about. I mean, I could go on all night.
We could
about
go on
some
forever.
of my
We could
favorite
go on
calls by him.
forever. He's had just an endless amount of incredible moments that he's been a part of that he's just made so much better with his voice and the use of his words and the
Yep.
words that he comes up with. And with that, I think we're going to leave the episode there on that note. We'd like to thank everybody that was listening. Final thoughts, boys? Any final thoughts? Alex, any final thoughts?
Honestly, the only thing I want to say is happy retirement for Doc Emmerich. Happy to see him go like this.
Absolutely. Sean, any final thoughts?
Yep. It's impossible to replace a goat, but somebody's going to be tasked to do it, and we're going to have to try to support him every step of the way because it's like Alex said, big shoes to fill. But you have to believe that Doc will be watching and cheering him on too.
Yep, absolutely. And with that, from us, we'd like to thank everybody listening, and we will see you next time.